Hi everyone, Hirsch Sai here, reporting from Auckland. Today is the 27th of May 2024, and yes, I guess it's finally come to this, a talk video on artificial intelligence. Um, it's certainly a term which I think we're all maybe getting a bit sick of hearing about, even though we've probably only been hearing about it a lot quite recently, probably even in just literally the last year or two. But it is definitely something which I think, which we all need to take into consideration and which we all need to be aware of because, like it or not, it's coming, it's happening. In some ways, it's pretty much already there. Just like when computers came about in the first place, not just computers full stop, but that your portable desktop personal computers, when they were starting to appear in, every office, every school, even every home, or of course the internet. When the internet was appearing, and at first it was just there at work and at home, and even at home it was a bit hard because we only had one phone line, and when someone was on the internet, we couldn't be using the phone at the same time, and vice versa. I certainly remember those days, and then of course it became more and more common. And then, of course, there were mobile phones as well, not particularly in that order of terms of computers, the internet, mobile phones. Certainly a lot of overlap with them. But the mobile phones, and I remember actually distinctly remember here in New Zealand, where I was not only where I lived but where I was born and raised. In 1992, when I was just 7 years old, it was my father who had a mobile phone, and of course he was the only one who had a mobile phone in the family, and it was just such a big thing to think that you actually had a mobile phone. In terms of phones, was probably the next best thing since the car phone, and of course, the car phone came decades before that. But yeah, it was only him who had a mobile phone in 1992, and then basically, from what I remember, sort of the late 90s, at least here in New Zealand. I know sometimes we can be a little bit behind the rest of the world, technologically speaking, but late 90s, they became more common, more affordable, more people had phones, and then certainly by about 2000, early 2000s, basically everyone had a mobile phone. And then approximately by about the mid 2000s, they became more sophisticated. I still remember early 2000s, all we did on our mobile phones was just call, text, and play Snake, you know. And then by the mid 2000s, it was much more sophisticated than that. And I remember again here in New Zealand, 2010 was a year when we got internet on our phones, or when it was um, more commonplace and more affordable. And then pretty much since 2010, we were able to do just about everything on our phones as we could do on computers. And then of course people were that's when they start to become glued to their phones and always having their head down. And like I've said in a previous talk video, now becoming slaves to the very devices that were supposed to free us. But coming back to artificial intelligence, what this talk video is about, it's just, it is another thing like, mobile phones, like the internet, like portable desktop personal computers. Whether you like it or not, it is coming and will become very influential if it already isn't. And it will certainly become a part of daily life. And, we've been hearing things like, as soon as 2026, just 2 years away, over 90% of our news media will be written by artificial intelligence. I remember reading that in a local news article not long ago, I think just earlier this year. So these things are happening, and I guess it can sometimes be a bit like what I mentioned in a previous talk video, one of my first talk videos on this channel, about every major breakthrough seems to backfire. And yes, to be honest, I can see that happening with artificial intelligence, but I think since it's going to be coming and no one can really stop it, it's already here. It's just a matter of time before it becomes much more commonplace and a part of everyday life. We really need to embrace it the best we can, and those who don't will just simply be left behind. Just like today, people who say, "Oh, look, I never do email," I never use a computer, they're evil or whatever, whatever. I never do email, I never call a mobile phone or use a mobile phone, etc., etc. And really, of course, people can do whatever they want, but at the end of the day, those people are just basically left behind, aren't they? And they miss out on certain opportunities. And things have changed. I remember getting rid of my social media, for example, and I got rid of my own Instagram accounts and my other Facebook accounts and my LinkedIn account. And so all I had left was just the one Facebook account, which I still have today. And sometimes I think of getting rid of that, but it's like, oh, it's a bit hard because, that's how a lot of us communicate, or how we find out about certain events or birthdays, things like that. It's just how it's done today, whether you like it or not. So, I still kept that Facebook account, but I try to moderate the use. I try to have a limit of no more than 10 minutes a day I spend on Facebook, no more than 10 minutes a day. And I think I'm doing pretty well in that regard. Not always, but I try to have those sort of restrictions. So I guess maybe with AI, of course, it'll take discipline and of course, it'll take work and it'll take organization as well. But try to embrace it, be organized, use it for good, and, minimize the bad that can come out of it. Basically, every new breakthrough, no matter what it is, but like in that other talk video, every breakthrough or every major breakthrough seems to backfire. Every breakthrough is capable of so much good, but also bad at the same time. It's just the nature of things. So, if we can embrace AI, if we can, use it for good, be disciplined with it, be organized with it, be really aware of it, then we can maximize the benefits we get from it and minimize, the costs or, the negative outcomes that come from it. And on top of that, I think we will definitely need very good, strong, and thorough regulation on AI to really make sure that, it doesn't cause much havoc and it causes more good than bad. And of course, I'm not sure whether that'll come or whether it will come in time, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll come, or at least in some way, shape, or form. We really need that regulation as well, just in the same way as it took time for regulation to come over social media and things like online abuse, online stalking. We need the same for AI. So if those things can be done, I think we can come out at the other end, of the tunnel, of AI much better and stronger and more advanced as opposed to the opposite of that. And yeah, and you even hear about things about like AI, in the use of robots and humanoid robots, and people having those robots as if you like, friends or helpers or servants doing, chores for them. And I guess that'll come as well. A little bit like that sort of 60s dream of a future, where you have, robots doing all the housework and everything. I guess a little bit like the Jetsons, if you like. Maybe they just, maybe they were right in many of their predictions. It just perhaps took a bit longer than expected. But, that could come as well. And again, I think that will also need proper focus on, because it's always that what do you call it? It's always that argument or that debate. If even if created by artificial intelligence, if there is, say, a robot or a being that is as intelligent as a human being and which can somehow even have a bit of a consciousness, which can even perhaps feel or interpret things or experience certain emotions, at what point does that being no longer, you know, is no longer a machine, but actually becomes more of a, if you like, a human? And I know those are pretty hard, debates that we'll have to have. And again, I would say it's coming, and people will, like to have that, and you've got all sorts of things that I've heard about, and all sorts of, sorry, things is not the right word, but all sorts of situations where that could come about. Someone who, loses someone close to them, and then they want to, have basically, they want to use AI to pretty much bring them back to life. A little bit like if you remember that very famous TV series on Netflix called Black Mirror, which only came about in the last sort of, I think, started about 10 years ago, maybe not even that, but I saw it back in 2018. And it's just amazing what it showed, all the things that can come about from, modern technology and, in some ways AI. And there was that episode called Be Right Back, where that woman loses her husband. And at first, she has him through AI brought on a computer so she can chat with him online. And then after that, she goes much further, and she has his basically, using AI, what was left of him, from his own things that he wrote online, anything that he put online, anything he said or did which was recorded, putting all that together to basically, replicate himself or replicate his brain, his being, and then putting it actually into a body. And it's almost like having him back again. She actually did that. And maybe something like that could, happen in the future. And, you could say, oh, but, there are so many people out there. In fact, too many people out there. Why do we need more people, especially in this form if there's already so many people? But, individuals will always have their preferences. They want someone, like I said, perhaps someone close to them who they've lost. They want them, back, even if that's, the best way to do it. Or it could be someone that they prefer, like using AI to create the perfect girlfriend. We've heard of that, even AI to create sex bots, things like that. Um, I think it will all happen again. If we're disciplined with it, if we're organized with it, if we're mature with it, we can use it all to the better, for our benefit, rather than, to our detriment. And again, we will definitely need, very, I would say, pretty strict and thorough, well thought out regulation over it as well to really, govern it and make sure that nothing really does go wrong. I do remember one thought I had. This was a long, long time ago, and I wrote it in a past ebook of mine called From the Mind of Hirsch Saha 23 Individual Thoughts. And one of those thoughts was, you know, of course, we've all heard of the fact that history repeats, and it really does. It really does, no matter what you're talking about, whether it's conflicts or even wars or economic cycles, booms and busts. History does repeat because people don't learn from it. That's why it repeats. If people learn from it, it wouldn't. But history does repeat, and you might remember, you know, uh, Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1960s, I think 1968, saying, I have a dream where a man is judged by the content of his character and not the color of his skin. And I remember thinking, how about this? Maybe in another few decades, or maybe even not even a decade from now, someone saying, I have a dream where a being is judged by the content of his character and not whether he is man or machine. And you know exactly what I'm getting at there. That could even happen again. Where say a little bit like in that 2004 movie starring Will Smith called I, Robot, where he's sort of fighting for the rights of robots, where basically robots, even though they were very intelligent, very sophisticated in that movie, because that movie was showing a future with robots, dominated by robots, and all set in the year 2035 in Chicago. That's 2035. So he was basically fighting for the rights of robots, where basically they were seen as just really servants or even slaves. And it's amazing. It's almost like that history repeating, and of course it can repeat, and history probably will repeat in many ways, and could even very well repeat in that way. Again, if we can just use it for the good, be organized with it, mature about it, strict with it, and have the right good, well thought out, thorough regulation, hopefully, fingers crossed, it won't be so bad. And again, we can use it to our good, because don't forget, a lot of good can come out of AI as well, just like it's come out of the internet, mobile phones, desktop personal computers. A lot of good can come out of it. And that's what we need to focus on. So, have these, measures in place, making sure we're doing the right thing and we're strict, with it as well, but also embracing it, because a lot of good can come out of it as well. When it comes to AI, you know remember, it's coming whether you like it or not. But in terms of reacting to it, or how we go about it, that's what I think we need to do, in order to maximize its benefits and minimize its costs, so to speak. And hopefully, we do something like that or close to that. I'm not entirely sure that will happen, but hopefully, again, fingers crossed, we can, yeah, we can, use it, all to our advantage and make the best of it, just like you should do with absolutely anything in life. Cool. Thank you.